Okay, so let's get started. We have a very unique opportunity here to talk about pupils and iris because this portrait does not have one, but it's also a 14-day challenge, which gives us a unique opportunity. So you'll notice that when you draw an eye on 14-day challenge or any other format, you'll notice that the pupil size is difficult to quantify. So let's pick a pupil size that we feel like may work. Okay. And the eyes are looking forward and they're just doing their thing. All right. The eyes suddenly don't feel right. Because, hey, maybe I didn't intend for the pupils and iris like to be this big. Maybe I didn't intend for the iris to be this big. And something about it looks off. But it looked realistic enough without. So what am I doing wrong? Well, let me shrink the pupils and iris, the iris a little bit more. Let me shrink it one size down. Well, now it doesn't look quite right because, I mean, it looks okay, but also the eye shape doesn't match. So you'll notice this happens to you. Yeah, I just did a little play. I don't know if you guys were, that was a play. That was a reenactment of your experiences. So what happens is that as soon as you add the pupils and iris, all right, so let me add the pupil. Okay, it's not great, but it's okay. You'll notice that things don't look right anymore. And that's okay. I'm here to tell you that's okay. And you might increase and decrease the size of the iris back and forth before it looks right. But it will always continue to look weird because drawing without the pupil and the iris visible will result in strange proportions that you're not sure were happening. You wouldn't even notice were happening. What? The word pupil is related to little people or dolls. What? There's a fine line between creepy as fuck and high as a kite when it comes to pupils, I feel like. Yes, exactly. And it's very, very easy to hit those both. So there's this one, which is like, you know, I was telling my other student, it looks like a betazoid. And this one, which feels a little bit off as well, since it's not quite big enough to match the eye you did. And maybe something in between would look right. But I feel like even that would face some issues because something doesn't feel right. So I'm here to tell you that going back and fixing the shape of the eye after you've added in the sample iris is okay. Because sometimes we need the eye to come in and make it look right. So let's continue rendering this portrait right into the iris and see where we end up with. All right, so I'm just going to duplicate the layer and I'm going to just find where we are. So let us separate the object from the background. Okay, and merge down, lock the layer. Let's address some of the value sharing. You outlined the head. You didn't need this extra shade. That's it. That's all there is. That's all that was. You just have to get rid of it and you're done. You added it for absolutely no reason. You added it because you're line dependent. You added it because it's left over from the time you used to outline heads and you were so reliant on the line to make you discern the object from the background. You don't need it. That's as easy as that. That's it. That's how you get rid of lines. You just get rid of them. There is no way to write an essay first and then go on some kind of spiritual journey and then you can start getting rid of lines. No, you can get rid of them like now, like right away, and then just let the edge be sharp. Let the edge that they represented be sharp. So I'm going to get rid of the leftovers walking up the head. The only place we need shadow on the side of the head is where shadow would be, which is whatever faces away from the light. And then I'm just kind of evening out all these extra shadows you've got lying around. All right, the edge of the head here that you have is very weak, very, very weak. Find a mid-tone and stretch it across the edge of the head. Make sure that sharp edge of the head against the neck is very, very easy to spot. The chin has a half shadow. You don't forget that. Don't make the chin glow. And then we're gonna just extend that shadow down. Okay, so we have nice clean edges. Got rid of your line dependence. A nice improvement moving forward. I mean, you can see the changes right here in front of you. Whoa. Okay. So what we want to do next is figure out like who this character is. So where you have the shadow currently sitting is a little bit too low for hair in the eyebrows. It might not be too low for the eyebrow bone shadow, but it's definitely too low for where you want hair. There are people whose eyebrow hair and eyebrows are very, very low and close to the eyes. But that's not your business when doing a 14-day challenge, simply because you're trying to max out your knowledge. You're not trying to learn one particular trope of a face, one particular type of face. You're trying to learn all the type of faces. And how do you do that? By studying the most general type of face. Because it's very easy to go to high from medium than it is to go from low to high, right? It's less of a jump to go from medium to high. So learning where to place the eyebrow from a medium point to a very low point is much easier than learning and having to unlearn always drawing eyebrows super cranky and not knowing that all your characters always look super cranky. But this looks very, very cranky, and you don't want that for an early day one 14-day challenge. You want to draw as general a face for your type of faces and your style as possible so that it's applicable to all faces that you will draw moving forward. So people always complain, oh, the 14-day challenge teaches you the same face, you know, all the time. Yes, that's the point. It teaches you the exact same face that you learn like the back of your hand. You perfect it. It's a face that represents your style. You're not supposed to be drawing 14 unique faces. That's not the point. That's not how you get good at anything. Repetition is how you get good at something. And so you're supposed to repeat that one face that appeals to you, the one face that you feel like, okay, that's really my style right there. That really, you know, represents me. And that's repetition. That's the power of repetition. 14-day challenge is actually a really basic challenge. It's very simple. There's nothing unique about it. It's not like, you know, some new fad that makes you draw well really fast. It's really helping you rediscover the basics of learning something, which is practice and repetition and understanding theory. So I raised the eyebrow shadow just a little bit. You can see the change we have already. It was just a bit cranky before. Actually, I'm not even sure if this was a 14. I think it was a 14 challenge mission. All right. Oh, sorry. All right, you can see the changes. And what I'm going to do next is try to find where that iris is supposed to go, the pupil. Sorry, the iris. I always mess those two up. So this lower eyelid is hanging just a little bit low. Again, what size do we use for the eyes that will match how low the lower eyelid is? It's a bit low. And you're also pulling from a very specific type of face. The face looks old and very masculine. So let's see where it was before. Handsome, definitely. Older female, absolutely. And that's because of the distance between the nose and the mouth. Usually you have less of a distance in the beauty trope of a female, even if it's a realistic, averaged out trope that isn't that Barbie-like. You will have less distance between the nose and the mouth. The nose and the mouth being distant makes a character look older. Let me show you. We want to make her look older? Okay. You take the nose and the mouth and you separate them further. That'll automatically make the face look old. You want to make a character look younger, you bring the nose and the mouth closer together. That'll make them look younger. Okay, and then where it was before was slightly in between those two. Sometimes it's also the length of the nose. The length of the nose could be brought down a little bit. So we can select the nose and bring it down and lengthen the nose to meet the mouth a little bit closer. Okay, so those things create age. When you separate the nose and the mouth from each other, the character automatically looks older. Let me get rid of that seam. So this is what we mean when we say, okay, let's talk about the trope. The trope is a big deal because it is who the actor is that they're going to cast for that scene. All right, so all I'm doing is neutralizing, let's say, all the features you picked because you were a kind of old masculine. And if that's something you want, that's up to you. But you can see the effects of that on the face. Another reason it looked older, so remember, gravity pulls the face down, right? Gravity causes a pull down of all your features. The nose pulls down, gets heavier and bigger. The lips pull down. The outer wrinkles of the face, the outer edges of the eyes all pull down. The eyebrow bone pulls down. You just see just a constant downward motion in all of the features. And that's why the nose and the mouth separate as you get older, because the skin starts to pull down. That's how you can tell a character is aging. And if you look at an actor when they were young and now, because their faces are so visually documented, you can really track down age in actors' faces. You can see that the noses pull further away or the mouths pull further away. And so all I'm doing is getting rid of that. So now we look at the eyes and we can see, oh, okay, this actor or this person or this character feels a little bit older because their features are further away from each other. Okay, and the eyes are dragging down. And so all I'm doing now is I'm just going to unage those eyes. And that's all I'm doing there. I'm not going to change this corner. I'm just going to change the sagginess of the eyelid. But Istebrak, I wanted to do a kind of an anime eye. You can still do that. Just don't make it look like the eyelids have sagged down that much. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but when you look at older eyes, the eyelids are very floopy. You know, if you look at an 80-year-old's eyelids, almost like they can't even function anymore. They blink, but they're not quite tight. And that's the feeling you get, that dragged down feeling. So all of these can help you unage your characters if you're aging them accidentally, but also teach you how to age your characters if you are intending on aging them. Okay? So before, after, before, after. So now that the eyelids are sagging less, maybe one of these, maybe this one's too big, but maybe one of these will work a little bit better since we have less space to cover with the pupil and the iris. Okay? And adjusting the eyes after the fact is perfectly acceptable because it's going to look right as they adjust with each other. Every time I draw a portrait and I introduce the iris, especially if I haven't tested out where the iris will go, I always have to adjust the eye I drew to match the iris. And a little bit here, a little bit there, and it'll eventually look good. The one requirement when you add irises is to make sure they're crossing inward just a little bit. They're not like perfectly centered in each eye. Because look what happens when I center the iris in each eye. It looks really, really weird. Sorry for the voice clearing. My voice isn't great today. So I'm centering the iris in the middle of each eye. All right. It's going to look a little derpy. See? It's like there's kind of spaced out. And that's literally what happens to your eyes when you're spaced out. You're not looking at anything. You're inward. You're looking at your thoughts. You're looking at the inside of your head. And so you space out a little bit. So to make a character look awake and alive and kind of alert, you cross the eyes inward. Okay? So crossing them inward makes them look a little bit more focused. Yeah, like dissociating, exactly. So I spend time on this. I spend a lot of time making sure the gaze feels realistic, because there's so much realism invested in a gaze that I feel like I'm adding 30, 40, 50 points out of 100 to completion just by making sure the eyes look like they're looking at something. Because that means that, whoa, this painting isn't just a painting, it's got functional eyes. There's a thought behind there. Oh, wow, there's a soul in this painting, because the eyes are functioning. The soul is observing. To be observed is to, feel like you're speaking to something that is alive. So that's what it feels like. The character, the thing that I drew, which is not real, is observing the audience. And the audience won't forget that about your portraits. And that's the first thing that people mention about my portraits. They look very realistic. It's almost like they have a soul. It's something I hear a lot, almost like they have a soul. And I'm here to tell you how I do that. I spend a lot of time on the iris and the gaze. A lot of time. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so give me a second. I'm just trying to make sure the eyes don't feel artificially wide. They're actually closing off the anatomy on one side. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust the irises one more time. Okay, so they really look like they're looking forward. And when it comes to the pupil, you do center that perfectly in the middle. You do have to center that. That is perfectly centered. You can't cross them as well, though. Don't cross them. I think I used to do that as well before I understood things. Don't cross those. Right, those can be left alone. Once you're done with that, then you can add the shadow, the half shadow of every iris. If you're going for a brown eye, just skip this, make the whole thing brown. But I'm using a colored eye just to show where everything is situated. I usually draw brown eyes anyways. Okay. And then we just delete around. Oops. I don't have the lasso available to me, do I? Select inverse. Nope. Shit. All right. So let me just delete away it instead. So now that we know what those are, and you can render these out, keep the layers separated so you have like a clean separation. You're still building the pupils and the iris around this shape. And then now I'm going to just add in, that extra shadow. I don't want the eyes too bright. I love the darker eye because it just gives this contrast against the white of the eye. Feels a little bit more easy to draw or interesting. To me anyway. And then I go back here to the original layer, and then I start catching up the rest of the contrast to how dark I went with the irises. So the lash line is the first line of contrast. And I move down, and then the crease. The crease is so important. I think I lectured a good 4 years on just the eye crease and how important it is. With male characters, careful not to over outline the lower eyelid. Don't spend too much time showing us the lash line. Show more time, or use more time, spend more time showing us the shadow of the lower eyelid instead. All right, not too dark because it'll just look like Jack Sparrow, but like, just, not that that's a bad thing. All right. And then I lighten the inner corner. I don't want the eye to look outlined. I don't want to show weakness. I don't want to show line dependence. Okay? Don't outline, your eyes. Let the edges do the work. Right? And then I'm showing where that fat body sits under the eyebrow, where it sits out here, catching some light, where it sits at the front. And I'm trying to preserve that general masculinity, but also that kind of youngness as well. Being careful not to over outline the lash, the upper lash. Thick eyelashes are very feminine, even on a masculine face. A perfectly handsome male man can look, male man, a perfectly handsome male or man can look very feminine or have very feminine beauty. Or a male man. A male man can be very handsome as well. All right, and I'm just letting this, so sometimes you guys reach the corner right here and you guys don't know what to do. Let me do a quick rundown of what happens to the basic artist, the standard artist around this area. Oh my God, I've reached the corner. This is a reenactment, dramatic reenactment. You know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and just connect those two together just like that. Yeah, that's perfect. Or we have the just elongation. They just keep going. They're not sure where to end it, and so they just do that. Or we have like the full-on Frankenstein, which is all of the features round back. They connect the shadows here, and they leave this gigantic swollen bee sting just up there. Or we have just the complete blackout. They'll just cover everything in shadow all the way around. I'm not sure why, but artists have a very difficult time with the outer corner of the eye. They have all these different ways of figuring it out, but it's actually very, very simple. The eye socket is lower than everything around it. And so instead of using shadow, use light. And that'll help you section off that whole section. And just find that temple value and use it. And that's all you had to do, is just do that and not share any value. So this is the deepest part of the socket right here. You don't have to carry that shadow all the way back around. You can just let it be. And if you don't know what to do with the edge of the lashes, it's the same thing. You just kind of let it disappear into the midtones. You don't try to outline the edge of the lash. You don't try to do any of that stuff. Those exaggerated corners are negative space. They're not there. They're not really there. Nothing happens here. There's no anatomy here. There's no eyeball here. There's no nostril here. That would be very weird. There's nothing there. So make sure there's nothing there. Edge-wise or contrast-wise, just use midtones and leave it alone. And sometimes there is a little bit of a water line, like a little bit of water hanging out under the lower lash line, upper lash line, right there. Sometimes, and that helps you find the edge of the lower eyelid. The lower eyelid kind of just pinches off, and just like that. Sometimes, not every eye is the same. But there's general DNA, there's the general human DNA and what it likes to do, what it's most accustomed to around these high traffic areas. Okay, and then that little highlighter moves up into that corner, and then we get the cheekbone out. So this face is very androgynous, and I've noticed a lot of the portraits I've been correcting lately, I've been correcting in an androgynous result. So this can be a female and a male. All right, and then now I'm not going to add eyebrows, since you don't really need to be adding eyebrows, especially this artist in particular. But I'm just going to add a little bit of an extra shadow here. Male eyebrows for a male face are lower than female eyebrows. Female eyebrows have a higher position on the face. Within reason, you can adjust here and there and still have it look female. Okay, as for the rest of the face, I think you overpainted as well. A sign of line dependence is an overly dark side of the nose. Too much. It's a nose. It's catching light more than it is casting shadow on its sides. So get rid of that. What do you replace it with? Man, I got rid of everything that's actually working. Istebrak's crazy. She wants me to get rid of the only thing that's actually working in my portrait. What do I do? How do I replace it? Replace it with an edge. So you got rid of those, you know, you got rid of those extra shadows on the side of the nose, which were really just weighing down and modifying or making muddy the skin tone. Instead, just rely on the edges of the nose, you know, where the bridge of the nose actually buds up or pushes up against the bridge, the side of the bridge, sorry, the top of the bridge and the side of the bridge. So there's sometimes a little bit of extra bone structure that's a bit sharp. The very tip of where bone is on the nose, you know how after a certain point it's just cartilage. And then we've got another lovely example of your line dependence. Wherever there's an edge, wherever it is required of you to provide an edge, you've provided a line. But arguably this was supposed to be the core shadow of the nose, so I won't hold that against you too much. Right here, another line instead of an edge. The nostril is a sharp point. It's overlapping. So let it be sharp. Let it overlap. Let it be an edge that sits upon the face, just like that. And sometimes I get a value that's darker than I need just to find the edge, and then I lighten it up again. But I still have the edge. See that? And then I just let the shadow of the nose, that triangle that you were doing, be a little bit lighter. But it's there. But I'm not full on trying to outline it. And then I let that bounce light sit there. Then I blend everything together. But this seems really mushy now. Seems like, well, there's not much going on. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the nose needs some lines. The nose needs some contrast. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it needs it right here. So I'm getting a really dark value I already had on the face. And I'm completing the dark spots, which are the nostrils. So why should we study a face? Why should we even try to do a 14-day challenge? It seems like a real challenge. It's very challenging. Doing that many portraits, getting critique for each one, having to deal with the critique, the ego blows, you know, it's a commitment. But I mean, the improvement is right there. All you have to do is just browse the subreddit wall, or just look through my video history at all the graduates from the past. You see their improvement in just 14 attempts. It's insane. But like we do the 14-day challenge because it teaches you some really, really important lessons. One, repetition, and how your knowledge is just overlapping your previous knowledge. It's just compounding. One good thing that you did, you learned how to do it really well. You added another good thing on top. Each time you learned one of those things was a mistake someone critiqued for you until you perfected how to do it. And then art skill became something that you can summon anytime you want instead of just being accidental. So it became an intentional kind of magic instead of a spontaneous or random kind of magic. And so you have more control and more confidence in your skills because of it. And it teaches you how to get critiqued. It teaches you to put your ego away. It's time to learn. You know, when you want to learn something, your very first step is to admit, okay, I don't know anything about this. And to continue to get critique means you're constantly exposing yourself to like an extremely high volume of learning. And so in just 2 to 3 weeks, you're no longer the same artist. You are completely transformed. And anyone who takes on the 14-day challenge, like they are on another level of consciousness. Like you need to be so humble and so ready, but at the same time that makes you so powerful. Anyone who's taken on the 14-day challenge, and I've actually talked to them, are very easy to speak to people because they understand like their place in their journey. They understand they're beginners and the greater, and so they're more humble, more kind, better listeners. Do you know what I mean? Like it takes a certain type of character, a certain type of personality to say, not like, you know, that only one personality can do it, but a certain type of maturity. I think that's the word I'm looking for. A certain type of maturity to say, I'm gonna just do this. I don't care if I suck. I'm gonna do it. And then you just start doing it. And that's actually really fun people to be around. Great listeners, good at learning, good at teaching, good at critiquing. They're not too proud because, hey man, please critique me. Thank you so much for the critique. Thank you for kicking my ass with this critique because it means I am better now. And they're just, they don't walk around with their ego out. And do you see what I'm saying? So the 14-day challenge helps you develop these features. It helps you develop these qualities. And it's like you watch your personality develop as you do it yourself. And not a lot of challenges are making you look at yourself in the mirror like that honestly. And so like seeing the mistake you made, you start looking less for the rewarding compliment from the galleries you share on, and you start looking more like you're hoping, praying, okay, wow, somebody needs to critique me now. I really want the critiques more than I want the compliments. And as soon as you start noticing you're saying that as an artist, as a student, your work will start showing some serious improvement. And again, I've never talked to a graduate of the 14-day challenge or someone who's pursued it and they weren't great to talk to, really fun to talk to, very, very just authentic people who just look at themselves honestly. And because they look at themselves honestly, they say they can take on a challenge like this because they have a really, really healthy inner monologue of their position in their art journey and where to go to learn it. And as a teacher and as a professional, it's very fun teaching those people because they know how to respond to information. They're soaking it all in. It doesn't have to go through an ego filter. I don't have to compliment them just for them to learn something. And not that I'm that kind of teacher anyway. So do you see where I'm going with this? It's a very, very big challenge to take on, but you learn so much from it. So I encourage you guys to do it. I encourage you. Everyone should go through something like that. It doesn't have to be my particular challenge, but it has to be some kind of point where you sat down and you were focused, you locked in, and you focused on something for that long a period, with that much dedication. It changes you. It transforms you. So again, all I'm doing is cleaning up the shadows, and I'm going to get a soft brush and do one collective brush stroke on the lower half of the nose to get that continuous shadow. Let me read some comments. She would have a field day with my face. I'm a woman with a very masculine face, jawline, very thick eyebrows. I'm still learning, but I usually try to throw some of my features in. I think the features that, if you look at my gallery on my website, there are some faces that are classic beauty, but I do try to pull faces that that are unique, that have very masculine features. One of the ones I really enjoyed painting was this one. Let me grab my website over. Very masculine features. I made the nose very crooked. I captured that gaze in the eyes. I added some wrinkling. I added bushier eyebrows. And of course, a not so agreeable expression. And I felt like this was the most fun to paint. So even though the 14-day challenge teaches you these super averaged out faces, you still have the fundamentals you need learned from there. So yeah, I definitely enjoy painting faces that aren't quite female, that aren't quite male, that aren't quite this or that. And I'm just adding a little bit of brightness on the upper lip. And I'm leaving some of that structure there in the nose to keep it feeling like a nice, handsome male face or androgynous face. Again, this could be female. This could be a female. And I've been doing a lot of that in my time with you guys lately, just trying to, find a middle ground so that if it was a male or a female, you guys know what to work from. All right, and then I'm just being careful at where the eyelids end, trying not to let it look like smushed mascara or blended mascara. And keeping it shadowy only where we have the the shades and then the cavities, sorry. And I'm adding a little bit of shadow on the other side. I've seen a female that looks like this. I've seen a male that looks like this. And blending out some of my banding here and there. Oh, I really like that bump in the cheek. I'll leave that alone. And then for the white in the eyes, you could add a shadow on the lower half. So let me get darken layer. So see this white in the eyes? You don't want to let it be white edge to edge. You want to add a shadow, a literal coarse shadow of the ball of the eye. Really, really important shadow there. All right. And that'll really help kind of make the eyes look a little bit less intense. And then in the same breath, I'm going to cast that shadow of the eyelash over the rest of the eyeball. Important shadow for making the eyes look like they are under and inside the eyelashes and the eyelids, respectively. Okay, and then merging that down and then adding some specular highlights here and there. Nothing too special or fancy. I usually like just keeping things simple when it comes to these things. I'm just trying to be careful and not overdo it. Ooh, one thing I like to do is not, so in order to make the eyes look like they're looking up, we can do two things. We can raise, look at that, he just looked up at us. We can raise them, but sometimes it feels like, oh, now he raised them, the eyes look a little sleepy. That means we have to, we have to cut off, oops, we have to cut off all this stuff. Now he looks sleepy, do you see that? We want the same alertness we had before, but also raise his eyes so they don't look like they're looking down or like at my shoulder. It feels like he's looking at my shoulder, then he is looking directly at my eyes. I want him to look like he's looking at my eyes. This here, it looks like he's looking at my eyes. So in order to do that, you have to raise up the eyelids. Right. So that's what I mean when I say, as much as you think you're painting the perfect set of eyelids for the future irises you add in, you're not. It's not going to be enough. There's always going to be some kind of editing you need, but it is encouraged, in fact, policed by me. In the 14-day challenge, the iris and the rest of the eye structure are painted separately in separate layers and at separate stages. Because too often do you find students that are obsessed over the iris. They will put so much detail. They will put even the detail of the fibers inside the lens and all of that. And think, okay, that's enough. That's all I need for the eye. The eye looks plenty good. But really, if you're a mature artist, you know that that's not enough. You know that the eye, painting a good eye, painting realism is all about the form structure, the mechanics, and the anatomy more than it is about the detail and the decorative finish or the decorative polish of the iris and the pupil. So, oops. Whoa. So here it is, and it looks a lot more alert, a lot more alive. I'm gonna merge it down. And was this the demonic eye right here? I don't know. I can't remember. This one, yeah, this one was the demonic one. And another demonic one. Okay, and for where to put the eyebrows, usually I zoom out for eyebrows. And I'm trying to respect where you place the eyebrows initially. They're going to be flat because it's generally male-leaning androgynous. And I zoom out before I place them in because you can't be this close and think you're going to draw a good eyebrow. Like, this is me trying to duplicate exactly what I did on the other side. I'm literally trying my best. to make it symmetrical. We zoom out. It's not. I was really trying. I was really trying to make him symmetrical. Zooming out is dangerous because it gives you a false sense of direction and scale. It's like walking around without a compass. And now I can see where I bend in. I usually flip the canvas, but I'm just gonna not talk about that today since I don't have time to fix what the results will be. All right. I'm trying to get these to look the same. Make the inside a little bushier. I don't want them to look too polished or groomed if it's going to be a male eyebrow. Male eyebrows are obviously less groomed. What's the word? Stereotypically, I guess. So they're a little bit bushier, but also literally, you know, we're not trying to erase the heterosexual male look, you know, when we're painting all these faces. We're not saying, you know, that's not even on the spectrum. No, we're not trying to erase what a straight male would look like that doesn't groom their eyebrows either. We're trying to find a middle ground. Sometimes male is just that, you know, but sometimes male is not all about. A man can groom his eyebrows and still be seen as very masculine. All right, I'm not trying to insult anybody here. And then I'm just letting the eyebrows get a little bushy, you know, drag down a little. Not make them too clean. Okay, and then it doesn't hurt to get a soft brush, pure black, new layer, darken so we can adjust our degree, pure black, low opacity, and we're just dropping in value, just airdropping it in with a parachute. Just dropping in value because we're showing how those new eyebrows we just added are adding this degree of shadow there. They're doing what they're supposed to do. An eyebrow creates shade, which is its genetic purpose, right? To provide shade and protect the eye. The eyebrow bone, the eyebrow hair, the fact that the eye is in a hole, the eyelashes, the eyelids, the pupil opening and closing, dilating and whatnot, is all to protect the eye from excessive amounts of light damaging it. And so when we add the eyebrows, in turn, in the same breath, we add the eyebrow shadow. And that just adds this realism. It's absolutely crazy. And then I'm just going to also add in shadow under the cheekbone. He's slightly smiling. So I don't want it to look like a feminine cheekbone. So what's the difference between feminine and masculine cheekbones? Again, this can still be a female. Feminine cheekbones are very rounded. But we've seen men with feminine cheekbones before. I'm not talking about real life, you know, instances of faces that in real life you got all kinds of combos. But in your drawing, it's a completely different set of rules. When you're hired to draw a male character for a specific male role, you're going to have to not use those beautiful, you know, Diana of Troy, or is it Diana of Troy? No, is it, what's the lady that they fucking started a war over? I can't believe I forgot her name. Is it Diana? No, it's not Diana. It's Helen. Helen of Troy cheekbones. I see like the trope in my mind. All right, you don't want these types of perfect, you know, Hellenic cheekbones. What you want is kind of like an inward indentation. So male cheekbones are real; they happen, but they're not dome-like. They're more like an inward indentation that starts at the cheeks. Because females after puberty do grow, their faces do change, but male faces like really change and they pack on the bone density everywhere. Females, yeah, the face gets a little longer, the jawline gets more defined, you get cheekbones coming in. You get rid of the baby face a little bit, you get more bones, but males, it's not just the bones that grew of the cheekbones, it's everything that grew around the eyebrow bone, this, that. The jawline, everything starts to thicken up in case they need to headbutt a saber-toothed tiger or something. Some evolutionary need men had for bigger brow bones and that caveman type of density. Okay, and you don't have to add those shadows. Sometimes eyeballs stick out of their eye socket. You don't have to add those extra shadows, but I feel like they really add something. Okay, and then I'm just gonna blend around a little bit. For male faces, a facial hair is definitely an option, but you don't have to add a full-on beard. But adding some shadow extending out of the lip edge right here makes him look more male. Look at that, right? But we didn't really add facial hair. We just added a little extra shadow. But if you ever saw my portraits, all my females have this shadow as well. Like all of them have a little bit of that shadow. I do that on most of the faces that I draw. It just adds a little something. Right here and here. And I have a mustache. I mean, it's not a big bushy mustache, but all females have upper lip hair, and that changes the value of your upper lip just a little bit. It does add a little bit of a something. All right, and then I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight on the Cupid's bow. This is all that hot air coming out of the nose, causing a little bit of a dewy condensation to the lips. I mean, to the upper lip. And then I'm blending out that lower lip a little bit so it's not too defined and pretty looking. Sometimes lips have a little corner. And we can go a little bit further. I can go for one more minute, which is the shadow of the head on the neck needs to be a lot darker now. Now that we've caught up all of the contrast everywhere, we can go a little bit further. There is so much that goes into painting a 14-day challenge that that I could go here. I could lecture for another 4 hours and barely scratch the surface, y'all. It really is a very, very huge field of study. And you if you want to be an artist that, you know, has some, I believe that the portrait is the backbone of every portfolio. I believe you being able to paint a face kind of makes you stand out a little as well. Because nowadays you can do all kinds of resources to come together and make an environment happen. Not that environment art is easy or anything like that, but I believe portraits, it's a little bit more difficult because you've got characterization, tropes, all of that stuff working at the same time. And it can be very hard managing all of that. So to be able to manage all of that shows a skill range that isn't necessarily easy to find. So practice some of your, practice portraits, and also the rules you learn in a portrait apply everywhere else, especially form and contrast control and edge control, line dependence, all of that. I'm just thickening up his neck because it looked a little bit thin and tiny before. And not just that, it's hard to use resources to Photoshop together a portrait and it not look weird. It's harder to do that than it is to like Photoshop some mountains and trees together. That'll look right pretty quickly, especially all those 3D modeling programs. Also, face has perspective, which is much harder to freestyle and requires a lot of training. And it's just like a really, really super skill to have. And I think all of you guys should try at least, 1 month of perfecting your portraits. So let's take a look at the before and after. So this is like your goal, I hope. I mean, if you don't want these changes, that's understandable. But this, I would say, this contrast and edge control, I would say, is this artist's 14-day challenge goal, should be. You can change the face, you can change the type of face, but I want you to aim for this. There needs to be a little bit of shadow around the chin, just there. So the 14-day challenge, what is it? You draw a portrait for 14 days in a row and you get a critique. I critique some of them if they're submitted to my subreddit. Kyle, can you link the subreddit real quick? And those who I critique, it's just like a way to kind of push them forward, to keep them going. But if you guys didn't get critiqued, you can watch somebody else's, and it's most likely going to be really, really similar issues that you can learn from. So before, again, very early, and then after, we've rendered a lot of the portrait already together. So not much further. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Not much further to go. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my Photoshop. It's kind of freaking out on me. Let me just save before I... Okay, so before... Whoa, whoa. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that. Oh, I think I know what happened. No, I don't. I don't know what happened. I thought it was my pencil, my stylus. Let me center it so it's at least decent. After, before, after. You can see the line dependence early on. You can see a little bit of excessive use of shadow. You can see the almost anime style eyes. I tried to draw the realistic equivalent of the face you drew. So I did try to stick to your features, and I did try to keep it a male. Before, after. So, you threw the bat and I carried it towards the direction you originally threw it from, but I might have added my own creativity. Your 14-day challenge can be posted. All of your 14-day challenge submissions can be posted to my to my subreddit. And if you want to find my subreddit, you just go to istebrak.com. The link is right there. Also, if this was too fast, if all of this was too fast, all of the brush strokes that I did, along with the brushes that I used, along with the fundamentals, the actual scientific fundamentals related to these brush strokes are all covered in my masterclass. My masterclass goes, you thought today was in depth? You should try my masterclass. It's a lot of information. And soon there will be another class released for form. Basically how to make things look realistic outside of subject, outside of just it being a face, just objects, how to make objects look realistic, form theory, light on form, edge control, contrast, all of that will be released soon in my next tutorial. I just haven't had much time lately between projects to publish it. But yeah, my masterclass is an option for those who want to learn a little bit more. If you're a list lover, if you like lists, Istebrak, I can't keep track of this and I'm not good at taking notes. What do? Hey, I made my entire masterclass into a step-by-step list, written version, also included in the masterclass through Gumroad. And if you feel like this masterclass is too expensive, I do offer promo codes to those who message me. You can message me on Discord. You can message me. I don't use Instagram much anymore. But you can send in a form submission through my website. You can just scroll down on any of these pages and you'll find a form submission. And I'll give you a promo code if you need it, if you feel like it's a little out of your budget. But there is going to be a sale for my masterclass towards the start of the summer. Or the start of spring, whenever that's going to happen in my area. But yeah, thank you guys for watching today. I hope today's class was educational. I'll see you guys this Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week is supposed to be the deadline for, next week or the next week, like the 29th or the 22nd. It's supposed to be the deadline for the community challenge, which is a book cover challenge. And not a lot of people have been joining. I don't know if people will be posting closer to that date, but let me see what people post from now until the 29th. If I see 5 submissions, I'll host the critique hour. If I see less than 5 submissions, I'll extend the deadline. Okay? I feel like I may have hit you guys with the challenge in a time of the year where people are like scrambling. They're back in classes. They're back in school. Usually all of the challenges I've ever hosted that have been successful were around the end of school, towards June. So I feel like I may have hit you guys at the wrong time. Also, the world is like on fire, so people aren't really motivated to draw so much. I feel like all the artists I know right now in my life are dealing with some kind of art fatigue, art block, or lack of inspiration or motivation. Have you guys been feeling that? Because it's real. I think that stress has finally kicked in for a lot of artists. And, world news, world events, excessive news, consumption, social media consumption. I think it's led to a lot of people just demotivated. So I will extend the deadline just so that people can have an easier time participating in the challenge. I would love to meet more of you and throw out the net a little bit wider. It's because the world is approaching a precipice. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I think a lot of people have been, especially AI, absolutely salad. Especially AI, we've been kicked in the balls like 5 times in a row the last couple of years, from COVID all the way out to now. A lot of people are freaking tired and haven't been having a chance to just breathe. So if you guys want to hold off on doing a challenge, I understand, but I will extend the deadline if I see that nobody's really posted anything by the 22nd and the 29th. I don't know how many people are working in secret. I believe 5 people so far, I think, on average, have been working on it, but they could have dropped it. I'm not sure. I'll let you guys know closer to the date. I'll see you guys on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Bye, everyone.